For me, I was diagnosed autistic at the start of my second year of university. Of course, there are some challenges that come with being autistic. A lot of them are to do with the fact that the general population just doesn't have an understanding of autistic people, and that can be really quite awful to realise that you do feel really quite alone, and people aren't up for kind of accommodating you all the time. A mainstream school, it was good for me in some ways, but also not. I think because I didn't have my autism diagnosis at the time, in a way, I did avoid a lot of negative attitudes from teachers and other students. Because I think if I did have like kind of the autism label, as some would say, I think that a lot of people would have latched on to that, and it would have been a lot worse than what it was. Um, like I know other autistic people at the school, and it was almost made out as if they wouldn't amount to anything, and there was a lot of attitudes around them not being able to do things. Whereas because I didn't have that diagnosis at the time, that was never kind of pushed on me. People could still see my autistic traits anyway, so I still got bullied for those things. It was just that I didn't have the label at the time. A lot of instances where, say, people at school would pretend to be friends with me for like the benefit of their friends. So like they would come over and sit next to me, they would like put on the baby voice and be like, "Ah, oh, your hair looks really nice today, Lauren." And they'd be all like, they would talk to me like a child, and then look back at their friends, and their friends would be giggling about it because they would find it funny that essentially somebody would want to be friends with me, and they would do that quite a lot. Yeah, so essentially through my own bad experiences, I've had to learn how to be a good advocate for myself, um, which I think is where my drive came from for wanting to be disability officer when I ran in the elections, because kind of up to that point, I'd seen that nothing was going to happen if I didn't make it happen myself, which shouldn't be the case. Everything should have been done for me, and it should have been in place and sorted with no questions asked. You have to learn to voice your own needs, your boundaries. You have to be very, very assertive to make sure that you actually get any kind of support, no matter how small it is. Now, because you realize that nothing's going to happen unless you literally pick up the phone or send an email or speak to someone, and you make it very, very clear that you need that help and it should be implemented, which often means kind of quoting the law, saying that under the Equality Act, you must provide a reasonable adjustment. And you have to become very, very well versed in how to go about these situations in a way that you don't come off as attacking them, because some members of staff will view you as attacking them, but also that you are being firm enough to make sure that you're being heard and that your needs are being met. The the fact that university is meant to be, you're expected to be very, very independent, and I think that can make a lot of neurodivergent students in particular panic, um, because university is often the first time we're away from home or we're away from a safe environment, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this environment where your learning is on your terms. You have to then cook for yourself, you have to do all of your washing, keep everything clean, and it can be very overwhelming being an autistic person and living at home anyway. But then when you go away and all of a sudden you don't have those kind of things done for you, or when you have to live differently from what you're used to, it's that, again, it's that kind of resistance to change that a lot of us have, where it is a very, very big step from going to being somewhere comfortable to then all of a sudden being expected to be very, very independent. And I think that, especially within first year, can make a lot of neurodivergent students realise that maybe university isn't for them and that they should be doing something else instead. The other thing, again, I think, is attitudes from staff and students. Um, Part of it being like making friends with other students. Like a lot of people say when you're at university, to when you want to make friends, they always say like, "Oh, get involved with societies, do all of these other things, talk to people on your course." But it's very hard to join societies when you already feel quite alone, really. And a lot of societies don't have that awareness of disabled and neurodivergent students. And some autistic people that I know love going out drinking, they love going to pubs, they love going to clubs, but for me and a lot of others, that's just not our scene, and that is what the focus is on for a lot of different student societies. So when the focus is on that, you can very instantly feel quite lonely and really quite distanced from everybody else because you don't fit in with the typical student. Um, so I think again, there's a kind of loneliness from that aspect. But sometimes attitudes from staff can just make you feel quite unwelcome. Um, I mean, I've had it previously where I've mentioned to a staff member that I was struggling, and it was suggested that I would drop out and come back when I get better, instead of them offering more tailored support. So I think especially within some courses, there's a very big attitude there of, if you can't do it, you should drop out, and that does come on to students. So I think if staff were a lot more thinking, right, how can we figure out a way around this and accommodate it so that you can stay in university and do the course that you want to do. But there just isn't that attitude there sometimes. But partly there are some times where I think, if you were just nice, or if you were just a little bit more decent to me, then that would have made the world of difference. Um, so again, I think it's just attitudes need changing. I do think that staff do need additional training in disability and neurodiversity.